You thrive off that.
We are on. Isaac Robinson, welcome to the Relationship Show. An absolute pleasure to have you on. You're a familiar face. Thank you, kind sir, for joining.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Phenomenal backdrop, first and foremost.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sitting in the mud room. This is, I think, on our last chat we spoke about this, but this is a little 1951 corner store, now turned florist. A few little gift wares in there. We're probably pivoting to flowers more so. Run by the very famous Lucy Sachenko,
there we
merchandise extraordinaire. And yeah, so my premises, but she kindly let me sit in here today to, of course, have the nice backdrop. You know, you've got to.
100%. I agree. And you're effectively the cafe owner, which is the Tin Donkey right at the back here, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So this all used to be cafe, but during COVID, staff shortages and just the intensity of owning hospitality through that period meant that we kind of just gave Lucy the opportunity in here, and we sort of went out the back there to our horse float.
Yeah, fantastic. And just for the audience out there, Isaac, a little bit of context about your background. I mean, you haven't always been a small to medium-sized business owner. In fact, I worked with you at Cirrus Media there. You were head of operations for effectively the largest B2B publisher and content marketing agency in Australia, and you've really cut your teeth there in the corporate world. But now out on your own, running a small business. Yeah. I mean, that must have had some transformational challenges, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. It comes with a lot of dreams and aspirations that probably it's a hard realization that they generally, in most cases of small to medium-sized businesses, don't come to fruition. But there's always the dreams, the aspirational. But I've always had a sort of a what do they call it? Another gig. What's the other? There's a name for it. But I've always had a gig on the side, right? Like when I was 15.
Side hustle.
Oh yeah, side hustle. That's the thank you. Another gig, side hustle.
Yeah. No, it's a really complicated term to. It's hard to get.
Yeah. But I was. My father used to work for the great Ian Malouf from Dial Dump. There's a great interview with him. People should watch it. But he was a great leader, and part of the benefit of being closely related to the Dial Dump crowd is we used to get all this waste, right? So I remember getting these piles of like whiteboards and pinboard material, and I used to manufacture half whiteboards, half pinboards, and door knock sales them around Bondi Beach in the old days. And then beyond that, I had like a vacant rental business. So when people are away, I would make sure their fridges were topped up and certain things. So I've always had something on the side, but this is the first kind of building bricks and mortar customer facing thing, and with that comes new challenges, but it's been great.
Oh, fantastic. And you mentioned there around the guy from Dial Dump being a great leader. I mean, in your opinion, Isaac, what makes a great leader in your eyes?
Yeah, it's funny, you read so many memes or messages on it, and many people might that are in leadership positions might read something and think, that aligns with me, and then you read something that's a huge difference to where you're at. And so, in my perspective only, but it's people have to inspire you, right? And you have to have the time for them, and they have to have the time for you. I've been part of some mentor or some leadership and mentor programs, and the time is the biggest hurdle to get over. I think when I'm mentoring people or I'm engaged with people, I really give them my time, even if it's unagendered or whatever. You have to give them your time to develop a relationship, really understand who they are, understand how they what is their goals and how they work and who they are.
And that's something that you're born. That's something you're born with, eh? That's something you're born with. Don't you agree? You're born with that level of empathy genetically. I think it's hard to train.
It is, but time is just literally carving off time. That's why I simplify it in that way. If you are to identify one person out of 100 and give them your time, and that's in my sort of belief system, that's how it is. Don't go to the 99, find the one, give them your time, you will discover some good things within that time. But yeah, leadership, again, there are great leaders who are just naturally great leaders, and I've seen some of those. I'm not one of them. It has to be a practice that you have to sort of read up on and churn out each day, reflect, and et cetera, et cetera.
Let's pivot over there to talking about small to medium-sized business. I mean, what were some of the biggest challenges initially for you, especially on your onset coming out there, especially coming directly from the corporate world and from setup to implementation to marketing? But yeah, what were the biggest challenges that stand out in your mind?
Well, first of all, I think we spoke about this before, but you don't play to your strengths in many regards. It's just a natural phenomenon that happens, right? So you would think with this business, being sort of in the digital space and the marketing space, that I've got all that done, on point, checked off, but it's not really a reality. So there's a lot of work I've got to do there. So if you can, play to your strengths first, right? Do what you know best first and get it done from the beginning. And where I think this podcast is brought to you by a key Salesforce partner, and so that's an area that I wish, starting again, that I had set up. A customer.
Thanks for the plug, by the way.
Yeah, but that's the reality, because doing it post implementation, post launch, it's challenging, right? And so get your ducks in order. But for me personally, it was the amount of admin that's involved in running a business, the tax implications, the bookkeeping, the ordering. There's a lot of questions I have around, what do we call it, the system to support small business today. Like, the concept of a wholesale price doesn't really exist. The award wage system is very challenged. The burdensome admin the burdensome admin is really crippling for some businesses. And then just becoming profitable is also incredibly hard. So
what do you think makes a good operator then? What are the core functions? So it sounds to me that you're mentioning a lot along the lines of, look, knowing your numbers and accounting and finance, that's to the core of it all. But yeah, anything else from your perspective?
Yeah, well, what makes a person really great at it? I think knowing their product really well, testing their community, in my case, or their market really well, being able to launch a sort of a minimal viable service or product, and then scale at that point. And I think organic growth should be your best measure. Don't overcapitalize into artificial growth, right? So you can bring in sugar hits into your business through paid campaigns or whatever it might be later on, but just focus on your organic growth for a really sort of a substantial period of time. And feedback, speak to your customers. Like with me here, I have the privilege of being in a community, but we have no qualms with having different types of conversations, knowing their kids, and it is, you've got to get to know your customer, and that's
No, I used to speak to Paul from Astra Abloy a lot. Yeah, no, I can relate to that. But it's true. But I mean that in a very sincere way. I mean, the reason he actually was spending money, I built an organic, natural, and very genuine relationship with him, and I spent the time with him. And different to you, spending quality, genuine time with your customers is paramount. I mean, it's the lifeblood.
Well, people buy from people. It sounds cheesy, but it is the case.
No, it is the case. People buy people they like, trust, and understand.
Yeah, your worst enemy in terms of your worst critic. Sorry, when you put out your product, right? And so you can just gauge it off that, and take the feedback as well. But if you've got a relationship there with people, it's the conversation and the continuation of that conversation, and knowing where they're at, and offering them support outside of the business, that keeps them coming back. You know, you can't just, it's. But
an
again,
interesting one. How have you? It must have been a very challenging market there. I mean, a lot of cafes and owner operators doing a similar niche to you. But I mean, Isaac, how did you fundamentally differentiate and set yourself apart from the rest?
Well, I think, my existence is very much because I own the building. That's the first point. I think it's really important to say that. I think if you get into some leases with commercial buildings, that can be troublesome, and that can be sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back. But so that's the first point. That's why we're still here today. But second of all is we're amongst a community. I keep bringing that word up, but we really are. Our neighbours are our customers, and we listen to them. We're close to a hospital here, so when we pivoted here, flowers was an obvious, gifts and flowers was an obvious thing. We have a corner store section here, so people would prefer to walk rather than drive to the supermarket to get the basic meal. Coffee is an interesting thing. I've heard that when the economy struggles, coffee is often the last thing that people give away. So that's an important factor. But then your suppliers are really important too. We've shifted from certain suppliers just based on shared value. They understand who we are and what we're delivering, and so you have to have a really good relationship with your suppliers to make sure that that we're all doing well together, I think. And then there's technical things around price and the price in the wider industry, and then where you sit, how that price differs because we're regional versus city, and there's all those sort of nuances that you have to sort of tackle as well, especially when you've got GST in Australia. That's a huge expense, and so you have to factor those in, and payroll tax and all those technical things as well.
Fantastic. And you mentioned there, Isaac, a lot around relationship is the key word you keep throwing out, and also community. I mean, in your opinion, how can one go about building a relationship and a community? I mean, is it the same as a personal relationship? Is it different in business? I mean, what are your thoughts? What are those pillars or ingredients to build a relationship? I mean, in my view and my experience, trust is number one. As soon as someone likes you and trusts you, those are two core pillars to start the relationship. But like you mentioned also earlier about time, it takes time to build a good relationship. But I'd love to hear your views and perspective as to what's been successful for you to build a relationship, build good relationship.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I definitely speak from a personal perspective here. But I think if anyone is listening to this, they can kind of take it and transpose it for them. So, speaking very personally, and this isn't like I'm not sure any of my customers are listening to this, so, I'll share some things here. Like for me...
they will be.
For me, it's about giving, right? So, I'm in a florist here, so I have a standing order for flowers once or twice a week, and we choose a random customer to take it to their house and give it to them. Not, hey, we've bought you flower, just things like that, right? And so if you imagine how often does that happen to you, many people probably think that's never happened to me, but we do that. We also offer, me personally, I'm a hobbyist, I'm a builder, I offer anyone going through renovations in our community, I offer them a day's worth of labor. And so that to me is, it's me taking the forward step into their existence and trying to help them along, and then we get that back in return. And it's authentic because you love to get to know these people.
Well, exactly. And in fact, that's a good point too. A lot of people giving for the sake of the expectation to get it back around in return, but you've got to genuinely want to give in a very authentic way, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. And especially the staff we have here are here because of the community, right? So it's not a job. And so they have a genuine interest about people that come in each day, their kids and everything, and it works well. We had a couple in this morning actually. They found us on Google Business, and they were saying, "Oh, you know, we
Oh,
found
they must have read all those raving reviews, actually. The
that's,
ones that
that's
you
right.
sent those six email accounts up with. But yeah, sure. No, please continue.
Yeah, and we knew that it was their first time here, you know, so we our first time customers, you know, always get something, you know, and we get to know where you're from, what's happening. And I've also been in other environments where that's uncomfortable. You know, the last thing, there's a great cafe in Armadale, and there was a running joke there that the moment he knows your name is the last time you go there, right? Because it's too much, and so it's just that kind of like push and pull. You know,
yeah, but it's interesting. But also, there's so many levels of like cultural differences there as well. I mean, even in Samoa, there, I was a guest on this boat, but the boat crapped out, and I wanted to help these young kids, but I wasn't allowed to help. So I'm the guest, so I was like, oh no. In my culture, I just want to provide a new solution to get the boat moving, you know. But they're like, no, we have to fix this. It's our problem. That's how they work with culture. But yeah,
and you felt like you could have contributed in that scenario.
I certainly could have. Yeah. Well, I just knew the Yamaha motor that they were dealing with because we used to have a dinghy back in the days. Yeah. So I definitely. They just needed some masculine manpower. Effectively, they weren't strong enough to get it going. And have you seen these biceps? I'm there to help. So, but anyway, it was fine. But no, what I saw there though, Isaac, seriously was and speaking of community, but also family, I mean, we're stuck in the middle of the ocean. I mean, it's not too deep, but we're still 3 kilometers off land. And the whole family seeing the boat stuck there in the middle, they all swam out.
Yeah.
Keen to help, you know. And, the older boy jumped on the boat and did what I was going to offer to do, just provide that man.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, you know, because, you know, I'm a multicultural family as well, you know, and you know, they often speak about in some of these countries as heart of the servant, you know, and servant is a, you know, in probably Western culture is probably a bit more of a derogatory term or a negative term, but the heart of a servant is exactly where it's at, you know, like if you really have that heart of a servant, you will deliver, right? If you go in wanting to help people, you'll deliver. And
that's an
philosophical.
It is very philosophical, and I find that interesting, especially specific to New Zealand and Australian culture. I don't think. Look, this is just anecdotal though, but I don't think generally we like to be helped. We're kind of staunch, stoic, and we really want to be independent. When we see servants or servants are literally serving us, I don't think it's well received. What's your take?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. I'm guilty of it many a time where, you know, in a very particular moment, I'm thinking, geez, if I had someone to help me, and that help arrives, and I'm all right. You know, it's all
good. She'll be right, mate. Yeah, that whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But I guess as we travel the world more, I think it's really lovely to be so open to someone that actually just wants to help you. You know.
Well, I think you force yourself in with respect and courtesy. You know, like I know for now, you know, after this interview, I've got to go down and screw some screws into a neighbor's deck, you know, and he's told me many a time that it'll be right. He's got all this time to do it, but I'm going to show up with my impact driver. You know, you just got to know.
Does he need the right tool?
No, he's got the tools, but it's a lot of deck screws. You know, like it's a big job.
It's a big job, right?
He's getting on in a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You've got to push. You've just got to show up. If you show up with the tool to deliver the service, you know, people accept it. You know.
So what you're saying there, the moral of the story is that even if someone says no, you execute anyway.
No.
Even if someone goes, no, I don't need any help. No, thank you, but no. Just keep showing up and take control. Take control.
Yeah. Not about control. It's about.
Well, I mean that in the best possible. I know, yeah. I mean that in the best possible way, not in a controlling way. But anyway,
definitely. Yeah. I'm there. I'm there for them with tool in hand. Let's complete the project.
That's great. Hey, so let's talk just before we wrap this up. I mean, let's look a little bit more there around, you know, your customer. Obviously, it sounds like you're very customer centric. You're very community focused. I mean, what would your advice, Isaac, really be for, young budding entrepreneurs that are sort of wanting to follow in your footsteps, that are really want to build something similar to what you've built? I mean, like you've said, you're lucky that you own the building, so they don't need to deal with commercial landlords. But yeah, just as sort of maybe, I don't know, top 2 or 3 tips or must-dos to best set them up for success.
Yeah, well, I think, can we stay in a philosophical vein here? Is you have to take risks. Generally where there's more people kind of umming and ahhing about your idea that you're sharing it with, it's possibly a good thing. If you don't, a lot of people start business today and they set a budget early, right? And I think that's an issue, right? You see it on many of the shows in Shark Tank, and many of the shows.
Why is it an issue?
Because people try to do things on a limited budget, and you realize that the budget needs to be open. You need to sort of go all in on ideas and commit to them, because people don't realize that if you can launch the business quickly, start turning over some revenue, it will start to feed back into that end goal, but you can't sort of tighten up and stick to that initial launch value or budget value that you assign. If I did that, I mean, we're probably in 3 or 4 years, we started with a horse float and a setup worth 10,000, but we've probably put $500,000 into the business at this point.
How long has it been running? What's the life? 3 years.
3 years, and so, but it has paid every cent back, and the rate at which it pays itself back accelerates, and so you need to have a bit more liquidity to sort of expand and grow at the same time that the business grows as well. And so, a limited budget is destined for some challenging times, I think. Knowing your market, which I mentioned earlier, like you have to engage your market, you have to know your people, speak to your customers, know your product well, and then obviously then focus on your best supplier relationships. A lot of people get in this kind of like this mindless ordering cycle where they're not challenging their suppliers on prices or looking outside for other suppliers, whether it be flowers, whether it be food or whatever. But you have to really sort of work with different suppliers to get the best value for your business, because that's exactly where your profit margin is. And like I mentioned earlier, I question the idea of wholesale costs anymore when you have big business like Amazon, Woolworths and Coles, which basically can give the same price to retailers today. So you have to work with your suppliers. So that's 3 areas. The other thing is
I think that's enough. No, I'm kidding. No, please continue. I'm being facetious. No, I love it. Yeah, no. I mean, look, I in the audience should be paying for this. I only asked for a couple. You're like, well, actually, the 3rd and the 4th and final one. Look, if you don't mind.
Yeah. No, well, I think it's more a state of mind, but there's a tendency to contract and pull in when things are bad, and then when things are going good, you kind of open up again. You need to be kind of the opposite of that. God willing, when things are really struggling, you need to be able to change and pivot and not sort of clamp down and sort of reduce your buying and reduce your services. You need to go the opposite. It's very much the same as people that are the whales in society today. Recession comes, they're cashed up, ready to buy at the low. It's very much that same philosophy. So if things are challenging times in business, which we know all too well over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, don't be scared to take the risk when things are tight. And then when things are good, that's where you should be sort of putting away a bit of a nest egg for yourself.
Great insights, Isaac. Hey, what do you love the most about what you do?
It's the people. I mean, I'm so lucky, right? We talk about this, like just last night I had drinks and dinner with my neighbors here, or also my customers. I've got to go screw off a deck with a friend across the road.
You got to do. Sorry, you got to do what? Sorry, you've got to go what?
Screw off the deck. We're back at
okay, right. No, we're just in New Zealand with different terminology over here. No, it's good to understand.
And we've got just a great community, right? So if you can create a great community, you will be happy. It's not. It becomes not about the business. It just becomes about your schedule and how you can engage with all these wonderful people. And as a parent too, generally there'll be people that are in that same life stage as well. So all your kids are growing up together, which is super important.
Well, yeah. I mean, isn't it interesting? I mean, you're creating a family effectively, just an extended family, because the values of family actually are quite similar to how you create a good business and a good community. It just becomes an extended family, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And we've got an industrial area here in Coffs, and a lot of these industrial areas have this old oily couch sitting, just outside the office. And you often drive past these places, and there's some of the workers there have a drink on a Friday afternoon, but there's a lot of the customers there, and it's kind of like this space, and that's common in a lot of great work environments. Is you kind of have these places where customers and the business owner share something at some point. A great example, and anyone, if there happens to be a Coffs Harbour viewer amongst this, is we're doing the Matildas here on Wednesday night. Open to the neighbourhood, big screen at a little corner store in Coffs Harbour. So,
cool! Oh, great, nice. So you do those types. You do those types of activations. That's great.
Yeah, sure. And kids' birthday parties, we do free Barbies. It's awesome. It's really great. I could talk about that all day. I don't know how. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the Relationship Show. Really do appreciate it. You've provided very actionable insights, and I do appreciate your time. So thank you very much for coming on. Thanks, Luke. Have a good day.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
I'll just hit these.